remember here it says a coach can, and again, the key word there is can win big at Auburn. I want to go through why that can is a little bit lower of a percentage than you would think about. What is up, everybody? It is Jake with Master of Football, back at it again. Happy Wednesday. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to be updated on all things EA college football, watch plenty of college football content, anything related to American football, please hit that red subscribe button right now. Pro football, college football, video game football, anything like that, hit the red subscribe button. You will not be disappointed. Like I said, it's free. It's not going to cost you anything. You'll be up to date on everything EA college football and plenty of college football content and plenty of other ancillary things too. So all football content, you'll love it. Hit the red subscribe button. Also hit the like button. Without further ado, let's get into our video. All right, guys, so I have been going through a couple of things here, and there was an article that I saw recently that I need to discuss here because there was a happenstance with Auburn recently. What do you know about their head coach? They want to get rid of former Boise State head coach Brian Harsin. And they were talking about, in the article specifically, they were talking about what are the best remaining jobs in college football right now, of the open jobs right now. There are some jobs that have interim coaches right now. As an example, UAB does. They weren't factored into the calculations. But I wanted to go through this article here and kind of see their methodology and kind of give my breakdown of each of these positions. Let's get into the article right now. Here we are with Steve Lasson from athlonsports.com ranking college football's open head coaching jobs for the 2022-2023 carousel. Now remember here, a big aspect behind that is important here is that a lot of these positions need to be filled by December 1st is a safe estimation. We're going to say Thanksgiving weekend. There's going to be a lot of work for those athletic directors and presidents and stuff like that around that time period, because mid-December is roughly when the early signing window is going to happen. You want to give your guys at least 2 weeks, give them the ability to get out there and so on and recruit. Any head coach who takes over right now there's still a couple weeks left of the season. There's a couple visits, this and that. So they want to make sure they can get that done as soon as possible. But like I said, I think by December 1st-ish is when you're going to see a lot of movement. Between Thanksgiving and December 1st is when you're going to see a lot of movement there. 7 programs: Auburn, Wisconsin, Colorado, Nebraska, Arizona State, Charlotte, and Georgia Tech. Think about that there. Of those 7, 6 are in the Power 5 Autonomy 5 conferences. Charlotte isn't. So again, he went over here and did these jobs, and there's a couple different rankings here. They go through why it's open, what's their 5-year trend on wins, what's their 5-year trend on recruiting, what are the pros, what are the cons, what are other ancillary factors, and what's the conference realignment outlook look like. So they go through a couple of those things here. I'm going to give my breakdown of this. The first job they have here is Auburn, and again, you know how I feel about Auburn. There's a lot of names that have been mentioned. There's, Lane Kiffin, there's Hugh Freeze, there's Deion Sanders. Matter of fact, Deion Sanders actually gave his breakdown of what he thought of that. So it says a report asked Deion Sanders about Auburn. His response was he was like, "Oh, you're talking about the Jackson State Tigers," is what he was talking about. But no, that's not what they were saying here. And again, I tweeted this: when you would rather be at an FCS program than an SEC one, Auburn is a terrible job if you have a future in coaching, but it's a great place to get a buyout from. Winky face. And again, got to have the winky face there. So you know that he's been asked about it, and a lot of people are going to ask for him. However, he's got a good thing at Jackson State. I do think he's not going to stay there forever, and I do think the second that he leaves Jackson State is the second that Jackson State, all those players who he's recruiting out there, transfer with him. And again, you never know. Once his sons graduate, something like that, you don't really know what's going to happen there. But my personal opinion here, I don't think he's that into Auburn right now. I also want to bring up this video here from Crane & Company. It was a coach can win big at Auburn. He articulates out here how Brian Harsin wasn't the right guy, then you do this and you do that. They're not that far away from these national championships here and there. So I think that there's a fair estimate here. There's a little bit of vitriol towards Brian Harsin. And again, I had some vitriol towards Brian Harsin when he left Boise State. But I really don't understand, man. It was like he kind of said you don't necessarily need somebody who's born in the South, but you need somebody who understands recruiting in the SEC. The reason why he was fired wasn't because of recruiting. The reason why he was fired was because a bunch of boosters wanted to push the AD to hire somebody else. The AD is eventually removed. Now the head coach was removed because there's these wackadoodle boosters out there. But remember here it says a coach can, and again, the key word there is can win big at Auburn. I want to go through why that can is a little bit lower of a percentage than you would think about. So when you look at Auburn here, it says, why is Auburn open? Or Brian Harsin was his brief 2-year tenure, not even 2 years at Auburn, ended with his dismissal on Halloween. So he was very unpopular with the boosters. Remember that. That's a big factor there. And you keep on coming back to those boosters. Their 5-year trend is pretty good on wins. 8.2 excludes 2020, like I said, because 2020 was a shortened year. 2022 is obviously not a full season yet. 5-year recruiting average is 14. Very, very good recruiting. And they kind of highlight that there. So it says life in the SEC is not easy, but Auburn has several things working in its favor. The program is willing to spend, and it's an SEC recruiting territory. So like I said, not too far from Atlanta in the Deep South. They've got a lot of players close by that they can recruit pretty easily. The cons are you have to play Alabama and Georgia every year, and you have to beat them. And Georgia, I'm telling you right now, that game is no longer a gimme. It is going to be a difficult situation for them as long as Kirby Smart is there. Alabama, as long as Nick Saban is there, is going to be a problem. Even if he leaves, I mean, they're still going to be able to pull in any top flight coach that they want. They can always outspend Auburn. And also, it says right here, alignment between boosters, administrators, and a coach is a must. Yeah, well, unfortunately, basically, these people are crazy. So good luck with that. Conference realignment outlook, and it is stable. However, I will say this. This is one area where I am going to give Auburn a little bit of a pass. I won't say a pass, but a push, a boost, because as the SEC West and the SEC East, the SEC West has traditionally, in the last couple of years, been very, very strong. Every single team in that division, you could theoretically make the case, Arkansas, Mississippi, LSU, they are all trying to win and win now. There's a lot of, conferences out there that aren't like that. As an example, I'm a big fan of Boise State. There's a lot of teams in the Mountain West Mountain Division that could not care less about football or if they're good or not, whereas the SEC West, everybody's trying to be good. SEC East, there's a couple programs. Vanderbilt, if they're good, cool. If not, they don't really care. South Carolina's trying, but it's not inevitable. Kentucky is technically a basketball school that's very good at football. They're still very good at football. Don't get me wrong, John Calipari. They're not. You're still a basketball school, but they are a football brand that's growing as well. But what happens is when they had Texas and Oklahoma, they are going to fuse the leagues together and they're going to form pods, or you're going to have 3 designated rivals, something like that. And so they're going to have an infusion of not as good teams. However, Tennessee's coming up. Kentucky's pretty good. Florida, if they can turn around, that could be a problem out there too. So they're going to get a small boost in a couple easier, maybe a couple more Missouris on the schedule, a couple more Vanderbilts. You don't really know, but I do know that it is definitely still extremely difficult. Again, the only team that them and Tennessee are the only teams required to play Alabama and Georgia every year. So a lot of issues there. And remember, at the end of the day, the boosters are nuts. The next job I talked about here is Nebraska. I feel like Nebraska is an A- job. I say that because it is a very, very top flight job. An A+ job, Miami, Texas, USC, I would say Ohio State too. Reason why I say those particular teams is because any of those teams, maybe exception being Ohio State, you can walk off campus and within a 100-mile radius that you can just do all your recruiting. Now, the reason why I say they're A+ is because it's easy. Miami's been down for a little bit. USC, you can tell that they can turn it around quick. Texas is kind of capable of the same thing too. But Nebraska is an A- thing where it's kind of like they're in that realm of like Virginia Tech. They've got Nebraska in there. You might put Oregon's kind of like that, where Oregon has to travel to recruit. Virginia Tech has to travel to recruit. Virginia Tech actually is probably a little bit below in that. And then Nebraska has to travel to recruit too. Again, still a really, really top 5 program, but they have to find something that differentiates themselves. I do like the fact that they are actually going to be really, really hurt by the fusion of the leagues because they're in the Big Ten West right now. They're having a tough time with that. You're adding in UCLA, you're adding in USC, and then you're fusing with the other sides of the leagues where there's going to be no divisions. So there's going to be more Michigans, more Ohio States, more Michigan States on the schedule, more Penn States on the schedule. So they're actually going to be hurt by that. At 5-year win trend is 5. 5-year recruiting national average is 24.2. Again, pretty good considering the fact that there's very, very few players in Nebraska. Like I said, they absolutely positively will spend as much money as possible. The university is chock full of cash. I've been to a game there. It's absolutely just beautiful. Everything's amazing. The fans and everything like that. It's hard. Again, it says right here, hard to access the talent. And I think that what they need to do, in my personal opinion, I've been a big fan. I think they should need to go Dave Clawson. Dave Clawson and his slow mesh system is something where if you put it at an A- program, it can make them an A+ program because it differentiates between your standard issue pistol spread offenses or power run game or something like that. I really like a guy like Dave Clawson. That's just me. Next one here is Wisconsin. Wisconsin is, and actually I've been able to look at their history. Wisconsin's history is pretty recent. It's a lot of it is Brett Bielema. A lot of it is oh gosh, I'm forgetting the AD at this point. That's right, Barry Alvarez. So like, the Barry Alvarez years are really where the history of it starts. So they don't have as much history as Nebraska does. But again, really easy to recruit. Their offensive linemen are always really good. They're always big. They always have good running games. If you can get them and how do I say this? Modernize them, because you can still have a power run game out of shotgun. It sounds crazy. You don't just have to run two backs and two tight ends the whole game. But I really like that potential there. 5-win trend is 10.2. I do think that this Paul Chryst firing, man, I think we'll see what happens with that, man. But Jim Leonard, though, it looks like he's working as the interim head coach. He may be the full-time guy. So solid job there. Again, a little bit more difficult. Same thing here is that you have to be able to recruit. But again, just like Nebraska, you're going to be fusing more Michigans, more Ohio States, more Penn States, more, USC's and UCLA's now. There's a lot more of those that are going to be on the schedule as opposed to Northwestern's, Minnesota's, who's not a bad team, and so on. So I don't think it's crazy because I think Auburn has the most potential out of these teams, but I just think that the headaches aren't worth it. Personally, I think you can win a national championship at Wisconsin or Nebraska way easier than Auburn, but that's just me. Then comes the ultimate, my gosh, the ultimate, like, why aren't you good team in the world? Arizona State. Arizona State is close to Southern California, absolutely chock full of talent down there, really easy to recruit. One of the most beautiful female, student bodies in the history of mankind. Any straight-blooded American male will have no issues being able to be like, oh, I could see myself going to school here. Pool parties, this and that. Like I said, grades, we were about that later. But Arizona State is a national champion, like in the waiting, but nobody's been able to put it together. I think a big aspect behind that is that you have to have buy-in from the top down. So from the president, from the athletic director down, you have to want to be good at football. They hired Herm Edwards. He apparently there was some leaks within the building trying to get him fired, so it was a really toxic situation. So you're going to have some sort of disciplinarian and or like iron-fisted but strong-willed and very, very technical coach to come in, because it looks like there's a lot to clean up there. 5-year win trend is 7. Recruiting average is 48. It shouldn't be like that. Talent is on the rise in Arizona. Like Bijan Robinson's from Arizona. There's a lot of really good players that leave Arizona. If they're able to keep those players and go right across the border there from Arizona to California and recruit in LA, it's so easy. Those flights are super cheap. There should be so many players that come over there. The academic requirements aren't as strict as like a Michigan or something like that. So they should absolutely be good, but they just haven't really done it. They also mentioned USC and UCLA leaving. And again, you could argue here, other than Oregon and Utah, maybe there's a little bit of a vacuum that's going to be open with USC and UCLA leaving. Again, I know that USC or UCLA just lost to Oregon and USC lost to Utah, but at the same time, that's because the league is pretty strong. But I think that, man, Arizona State, if they can get their act together, man, USC and UCLA, as they're looking like they're both getting pretty strong, are heading out. There's a lot of potential there, but again, I say that every single year. Coming to Georgia Tech, Georgia Tech is an interesting one. 5-year trend is 5.4. National recruiting average is 44.6. The pros are literally, it's the same kind of situation. Georgia Tech has higher academic requirements. But, dude, Atlanta has so many damn players in it. Dude, you should absolutely you should literally not leave until every single good player gets a scholarship offer. That's how it should work there. But again, they're working against a couple of different things, academic requirements, like we said before. But again, Georgia Tech, cool uniforms, in Atlanta, like in the downtown area. So again, it's a really, really hot spot for a lot of players out there. Hopefully they can do well. But I do know that the ACC is going to be stable, like I said, for now. So it has been rumored to be as expansion candidate for the Big Ten because of its, AAU status. But basically, for them, it's only going to get better. You're only going to get more money. As you're in the ACC, there's not as many strong programs as the SEC. You have some potential to win there. There's no divisions anymore. So, you'll have your occasional Florida States. You'll have your occasional Clemsons. But there's going to be a couple more Boston colleges and North Carolina States. And NC State is pretty good. Virginia Tech, there's going to be more of those on the schedule. So, man, I think that it really depends on what you look at. If you look at, I just care about my players, you'd probably pick Auburn. If you look at the holistic situation, you'd probably look at, I would say, Nebraska, maybe probably Arizona State and Wisconsin. They're kind of in that territory. Me personally, I'm biased towards Arizona State. They should be a power, but they're not. And then Georgia Tech, man, if you got the right coach there, able to recruit really, really good academics in Atlanta, hometown team for a lot of those folks, really easy flight to a lot of different places. It should be good, man. But, on my personal bias against Auburn. And then last but not least, I'm not going to go over Charlotte. No offense to my Charlotte 49ers, but because they're, a smaller level team. Colorado, I mean, in the Pac-12, USC and UCLA are leaving. They lose that connection, a little bit more of that connection to California. A lot of their alumni are in California now. They lose two of those teams down there. If they add San Diego State, that helps a little bit there. But national recruiting average 48.8, 5-year win trend. The scenery in Boulder is beautiful, but the problem with that is that they've had one winning season since 2006. So we'll see what they can do, man. But they need to be able to recruit out of Texas pretty well. But unfortunately, they don't play in Texas anymore. It's been a big issue that they've had a hard time addressing. So we'll see, man. But I'm not a big fan of Colorado as a job, just because I think that Colorado, very, very academic school, just like Cal Berkeley, they don't really care about football. So I wouldn't really put them very high. Okay, I won't be unfair. I'll look at Charlotte here. So you see the fact that Charlotte got off to a 1-7 start. I want to make sure I'm fair with these guys. So 4.4 5-year win trend. National recruiting average is 105. They're moving to the AAC, so that's pretty nice. They're going to have some more games, in Birmingham, more games in Charlotte, more games in they already play in Charlotte. That's stupid. More games in Dallas, more games in San Antonio. There's a lot more games that are having big markets out there they're going to be able to recruit from. But, man, I think that, they've got to compete against a couple different things here. 105 in recruiting ranking, that definitely has to turn around. But like you said, FAU also in Miami coming to the AAC. They've got a lot of big markets there for them. So they've got a lot of recipes for them, but at the same time, AAC is going to limit it. A lot of players want to play in big-time schools. But I think it's a solid job. I would put it below all of these Power 5 jobs, even below Colorado. But that's just me. These are just some of my musings about the head coaching positions that are available. Like I said, Auburn, I believe that's true. You can win big at Auburn. However, if I'm being honest here, if I'm a serious head coach, I would avoid Auburn if I actually want to do well and actually want my team to go there somewhere and live and do something like that. But if I'm an older coach and I'm like, you know what, dude, let's go there for a couple years, lose on purpose and get a giant payout, I'd go to Auburn. That's just me. But personally, if you look at the other jobs that, like I said, Nebraska and Wisconsin have to deal with having to play Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, more often. Also USC and UCLA adding into the league. Georgia Tech is solid in the ACC, but at the same time, there could be some, if they would ever have 8 votes to get out of that conference, you never really know what happens to the dissolution of the conference and where they go. Arizona State, man, I'm telling you right now, Arizona State, they just, if the top level wants to be good at football, that team is a absolute juggernaut in the waiting, but it just hasn't really realized itself. Almost like Texas A&M. Texas A&M should be really good at football, but they just haven't put it together on the field. Arizona State doesn't have the alumni base and doesn't have that oil money and all that NIL money behind them. But, man, they should be good, but they're just not there. But, hey, that's my breakdown of all these positions. What's your guys' breakdown on these positions? Am I being too hard on Auburn? Am I being too nice to Arizona State? Am I not being strict enough, too strict with Wisconsin, Nebraska? Get in the comments right now and let me know. All right, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for being here. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. I appreciate it. That's it for me. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I am out.